Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher, and we're doing our 5.4 Fire Mage Guide. Oh yeah, we love this class. This is a spectacular goddamn talent spec in this game. Fire is just awesome fun, always has been, always will be, hopefully. But it is a tremendous spec, and I'm glad to bring it to you how to gem it, how to prepare your character, and then how to kick ass on your Fire Mage. Alright, let's look at talent straight away. Let's get in there. We're obviously playing the Fire spec. First things first, your presence of mind. Presence of mind is really important to Fire because Pyroblasts are everything. Oh, Pyroblasts are absolutely everything. If you're not firing a ton of pyros, you generally have a floppy dick or a driver JJ. You're not hitting hard enough. Simple as. We want lots of pyros and we want them all the time. Tremendous. So you want presence of mind. Presence of mind lines up really nicely with Combustion, our main DPS cooldown, and it also lines up really nicely with Alter Time, which is hugely important to being able to be a successful Fire Mage. Everything else, not so useful. Just going to say, presence of mind, yes. Everything else, not so much. With talents, it's always a case of, well, some talents work better for me than what the computer might say. Presence of mind is not one of those. It's just better for Fire in near enough every single situation, so bear that in mind. Level 30, your choice is really between Ice Barrier or Temporal Shield. I prefer Ice Barrier. I like to use it when I can see everybody else is around me dying. I put my Ice Barrier for, lol, 74k amounts of absorbs, and that generally keeps me alive through a lot of things. Temporal Shield has its place though. Learn what your encounter wants, okay? It's more about what the encounter wants and what prefers your playstyle. Flame Glow, not so much, unfortunately. A passive, protects you with fiery energy, absorbs some damage from each. It's not the best. It's not the best. Ice Barrier, on-demand protection, and Temporal Shield, on-demand, I'm not going to die. Really cool. Really cool. So pick and choose whatever the encounter wants. Level 45, you can have whatever the hell you please. Makes no difference to your DPS. At level 60, generally a lot of raiders like Greater Invis. I personally prefer Cauterize. Again, it's one of those things. Cold Snap has its place as well. Greater Invis is really nice because it gives you that 90% damage reduction. That's pretty cool, especially when you know the bad stuff is coming. Cauterize is for when you don't know the bad stuff is coming, and I like that because I'm generally pretty good at keeping myself alive if I know what's coming, but sometimes what catches me out is the stuff I don't know that's coming, and suddenly I'm dead. Cauterize prevents that, and then you can go ahead and obviously Ice Block away that Cauterize debuff. Cold Snap as well. 2 ice blocks better than 1, obviously, but you do have that 30-second hypothermia in between, so bear in mind if you do take Cold Snap, you can't just do back-to-back ice blocks. So generally Greater Invis or Cauterize is going to be the one for you. Your bombs. Never easy with your bombs. Frost Bomb is flat out of the window for Fire. What you want if you're doing straight up single target or doing just a couple of mobs is Living Bomb, okay? You want to get your Living Bomb and you want to have good fun with that. Your Living Bomb is going to be the go-to. It's pretty cool. You can put it up to 3 targets and then you can refresh them. Remember with your bombs, bombs are so much damage, guys. You would not even appreciate it. Your main goal is always to keep as long a living bomb up as possible. You want close to 100% uptime as you can possibly get. It's really important. Really super important. Remember, you can refresh it before it runs out. You don't need to go, it's gonna run out, it's gonna run out. You can just press it whenever the hell you feel, and it's still going to explode and do all its good stuff anyway. If you're getting lots and lots of mobs, Nether Tempest is generally going to be the preferred. If you get up to like 5 or 6 mobs, 4 or 5, whatever it's going to be, more than 3 generally, Nether Tempest is going to work out nicely for you, especially if those ads are all dotted around the place. There's plenty of them. Kind of think Sue Long style with those ads popping up everywhere. Nether Tempest is a nice benefit to you there. At level 90, Invocation is the one. Rune of Power was buffed, but it's still garbage. Encanter's Ward, unless you can guarantee you can use that thing on cooldown, which no encounter in tier 15 or tier 16 can do, then it's not as good as Invocation. Invocation is still a pain in the ass. Really recommend you get some kind of add-on, one to track Invocation, and some add-on to track your living bombs. I'm using Tidy Plates Threat Plate, so you can see I can see the living bombs all over those targets, and I can see my Invoker's energy really, really easily there. No big deal at all. Definitely good stuff. Our Glyphs. Generally, your Glyph of Combustion is just amazing, okay? You get this double smack in the face Combustion, and you can also line that up really nicely with other cooldowns like Presence of Mind and Alter Time and all that good stuff, and you can line it with procs and trinkets and those dreaded RPPM things. You can get some huge combustions off really huge combustions. In terms of combustion, I just want to say I've done a whole video on how to get good combustions. It's more than I care to talk about in this video. It's quite a complicated process. Go ahead and click that in the background if you want to see how to get meaty good combustions, because it's not as easy as you might think, and failing your combustion is key to absolute disaster on your fire mage. Glyph of Cone of Cold, really recommend this. It's surprisingly powerful. Our AoE is not as good as it once was, although we do have the Glyph of Inferno Blast, I'll mention now, where you can spread your Pyroblast, Ignite, and Combustion to one additional target. What we can't do like we used to do in the past is spread it to everything. It's going to be 4 targets, okay? So what happens when we get lots and lots of targets? That's where we're going to start using, Arcane Explosion. Flame Strike is kind of a wet fish, I've got to be honest. Flame Strike thinks it should be good, and look at that graphic. My god, why make it suck so bad? If the mobs are running in, let's say we've got mobs running from over here, mobs running from over here, and they're going to gather here, then sure, go ahead and get your Flame Strike down nice and early. But once those mobs are here and they're in your face, you're going to be using a combination of Arcane Explosion and that Cone of Cold on cooldown, because you can see it starts hitting really hard once you have that glyph in there, okay? Really stupidly hard. You want to be getting the Glyph of Cone of Cold. Everything else isn't as important. I will give the Glyph of Momentum a big shout out. It's fucking incredible. Blinks you in the direction you are moving. So when you're strafing, you want to look at the boss. So this is our boss here. I don't want to jump into his nutsack. I want to actually go over here like this, okay? Glyph of Momentum is absolutely fantastic for that and giving you extra ability to do a lot of DPS. Those are your glyphs. What about your reforging? Well, when it comes to fire, crit is everything, okay? Fire is fucking useless until you're hitting sort of 40% critical strike chance in a raid. Yeah, I mean it. 40% plus is recommended to be fire. Now, I'm just going to point out that I am spec frost at the minute in terms of my gearing. But the choices remain the same, but replace the word haste in your mind with critical strike rating, okay? You're going to be gemming through the arse for critical strike rating. So where you see 320 haste in this current gear set, you would see 320 crit. Instead of haste hit, you would see crit hit, and so on and so forth. And their int haste would be int crit. You want as much critical strike rating as you can possibly get. As much of it as you can get. You drip in it. You will choose items that have a ton more critical strike in there. You want as much of it as possible, because the more Pyroblasts make you a better man. Simple as that. You are not a big guy until you have a ton of critical strike rating. Please do not try fire in a raid with your guild until you're really looking at like 40% critical strike chance, because you have horrendous portions of time where nothing crits. Okay, really horrendous portions of time when nothing crits. As such, I'm going to try and demonstrate to you the single target rotation. This is where it all goes wrong. Please bear in mind that you should be keeping your Invocation buff up 100% of the time. Get some add-on to track it. I won't be doing it for the remainder of the video purely because I'll be talking about other things, but this should be up 100% of the time. On top of that, your bomb should be up 100% of the time, so if mine drops off, don't worry about it. You'll be doing it differently in a normal fight. I obviously have things to talk about, but you want Invoker's Energy and Living Bomb up 100% of the time. I really recommend something to track these effectively, okay? So obviously, while we're doing DPS as a fire mage, we want to be doing a ton of fireballs. Now, what we're actually going to do is not blow our load. Now, given my low crit, there we go. Okay, so once you get your pyro, or you get the heating up debuff, you're going to want to use your Inferno Blast in order to generate the pyro, this Pyroblast. Nah, okay, let me stop casting. This is the situation you want to get. Now, what will happen is, as you cast this, as long as it doesn't run out, is that you want to be firing your next Fireball and Pyroblast at exactly the same time. Now, I'm going to try and repeat this process. Let me just buff my crit chance with Arcane Intellect. Cool. And this is for the reason I'm going to demonstrate for you now. So hopefully we'll have a reasonable chance to crit here. As soon as I see the heating up debuff arrive, I'm going to pop my Inferno Blast. It's going to turn that into Pyroblast like that. And then I'm going to hold on to it. I'm going to hold on to that sucker until I get another heating up. Now, when the next heating up happens, what I'm going to do is fire the next Fireball and Pyroblast at the same time. So hopefully this will happen in the next 4 seconds. It's not going to, is it? You suck! Let's just get that. It's always a nightmare when you do Fire Mage videos. Okay, cool. Let's get that heating up buff game. Come on, Bane. Come on. You can do it for me. There. And then we fire the Pyro and the Fireblast at the same time. The Fireball and the Pyroblast at the same time. And this is what happens. We get another Pyroblast proc. Now, the reason you need to be doing this and get into the habit of not just shooting your load as soon as you get the Pyroblast proc is quite simple. When the Fireball, the last Fireball, you should have Pyro, and heating up at the same time, and you'll be mid-cast of a fireball when this actually registers on your screen. So what you're going to do is go about here, if you watch this cast bar, about there, you're going to go, oh, I have pyro and I have heating up. When this fireball is about to finish casting, you're also going to fire the Pyroblast. What happens is both of these spells leave your character at the same time, and they both impact the training dummy or the boss or whatever it is at exactly the same time. If even one of those crits, it's going to affect the heating up that you already had and give you another free Pyroblast, okay? It's a little trick that everybody uses. It's a little slight abuse of game mechanics, sure. The game just cannot register two spells hitting at the same time and decide which one to use. So I'm going to try and do this. So there's my Pyro and there's the heating up. So both of them off at the same time. Boom, boom. And then I get this Pyroblast. There you go. That's exactly what you want to be doing on a regular basis. And remember, you don't want to just get rid of this Pyro. Don't just think, oh, well, I can just fire two off. You want to be doing it continuously, okay? Not always going to both. One of them's not always going to crit, especially with this crit chance. But you want to get into a rhythm where you'll just constantly have Pyro. And in fact, your next Pyro is dictated by this, the heating up debuff, okay? So I'll try and get a couple off. Always a nightmare to do Fire Mage videos because crit chance is never anybody's friend. Come on, baby. One more for the, one for the Colonel. You going to do it? Nope. That's the situation you want to be staying in, okay? The Pyroblast and heating up. On top of that, you want to be doing your combustions when you have a huge ignite. Again, please check out the other video regarding ignite because it's kind of a big deal. It's kind of a big deal. This is Combustion Helper, this add-on here. It's kind of important you know how to use that. Again, I covered it in a different video. If you're starting to AoE, when it's a couple of targets, like 3 targets, get Living Bomb on all of them, continue single target rotation. The only difference you really want to be throwing in here is your instant cast Pyroblast that you'll still be generating. You want to spread them out, so that can have a Pyroblast and so on and so forth, okay? Your single target rotation will remain exactly the same, but you want to be spreading out that Pyro. Pyro debuff lasts a very long time, okay? So you can see, but at this point, we've got it up ticking on here, and then you can also spread some things out with Inferno Blast if you're having a little bit of a bad time. When you start getting a ton of mobs, it's like we said before, Arcane Explosion and Cone of Cold, especially if you have it glyphed. That's how you're going to AoE is with Arcane Explosion and Glyph Cone of Cold. Last thing I want to talk about is, in fact, how you use Alter Time. Alter Time is hugely important. Doing a good Alter Time is very, very important. And the idea is we get as many Pyroblasts out as possible. So you'll be DPSing away. We've got our Combustion off cooldown. And we've got our Presence of Mind off cooldown. So we're going to get into the situation we talked about before, which is here. And we're going to alter time, and then we're going to start firing off a ton of things. Oh, I pressed my Combustion. Well, there you go. What you're going to do is get as many Pyroblasts fired off as possible, okay? So you want to use your alter time when you've got the Pyro and use your Presence of Mind to fire off Pyro after Pyro after Pyro. Hopefully that will give you the largest ignite possible for a Combustion. Bear in mind, there's only a 4-second window to pop a good Combustion, okay, when you have that big heavy hitting spell. What I mean by that is this. Let's say you cast 6 Pyroblasts in a row. The first one was the critical strike. That gave you the biggest ignite. And then the rest of the Pyroblasts didn't crit. But you also went over the 4-second window. You will lose that big ignite that you had at first. So it's really important to track which ones were critical strikes. What was your ignite? This is why I recommend something like Combustion Helper. You can see I've got an ignite of 3,574, 5,000. And then what we're looking for is things upwards of like 30 plus K, 40K. And if you start mixing in potions and things like that, you're going to start seeing some pretty ridiculous ignites. So if I fire, this is 12K. If I fire off this Pyro, you can see it goes up to 16K. They were non-crits. This is why I like MSBT for a Fire Mage. Tells me what was a critical strike, was it the Pyro, what was going on there. And we only have 4 seconds before that damage then disappears. Okay, you only have 4 seconds before that disappears. And then you need to think about firing off your Combustion. But Combustion doesn't have a long cooldown, so don't hold on to it. I'm going to show you all these things in the gameplay now. Enjoy!